This will be the recorded description of the PeterK Kazchrome job that we recently finished. Hearing is finished and we're waiting on a ruling. So at this point, the client has requested that we do not show this outside the company, and at such time as it does get a ruling gets rendered, we should contact the attorney Constantine Christie at Peter Kim to get his blessing to show any of this stuff. Case was about a construction design and defect job. This was Kazchrome runs largest chromium furnaces, I think, in the world, and they're in Kazakhstan. And they built this plant around four very large furnaces that melt down the ore to get the chromium metal out of. And there were design flaws. Some of the refractory bricks in the roof of the furnace fell down, were leaving gaps in the structure. The furnace wasn't designed right. It had a hard time maintaining the proper temperature, and I don't think it ever reached the power power capabilities that it was designed for. So the owners didn't get what they paid for with this furnace, and then the industrial operations of running it ended up with huge amounts of dust that made it very kind of dirty and dangerous around the plant. So there was a number of design issues that happened that we created some exhibits to help them illustrate. The bulk of the animation or the story was a sort of a animated augmented tutorial where we've had a lot of aerial photographs, drone video that we went through a step at a time to show the process of how ore is brought into this plant, how it gets processed and made into refined into chromium, and how those chromium parts get exported out by train on the other end of it. So here's sort of an aerial view. This was used by the experts then to describe the operation of the plant, and then gave them a background to point out where the failings in the furnace design were. But before they got to the furnace design, they kind of had to demonstrate how this whole system worked, so they could point out the shortcomings of the furnace parts of this. So I think the client supplied us with quite a number of good aerial photos and drone videos, and then we took that step at a time and highlighted it and added some animation to describe the process. Here's the beginning of the sequence where trains loaded with ore arrive. The ore is unloaded into a conveyor underground, and those ore parts are carried up into a stockpile inside the first building here, MBO2. I'm going to click through this fairly quickly, but the guys did some nice illustrations, highlights on the drawing, and then little bits of animation showing each step within that of stockpiling the ore, and how that ore gets carried up to the top of the pile, and then how that pile is unloaded and scooped down into a conveyor belt where the ore gets moved down into the furnaces. So I'm going to skip through this relatively quickly. You can watch the details. They're kind of nice. There's real good illustration, and I think it made good use of the aerial photographs and drawings to kind of make a flow diagram that was very interesting, but not so dry as just a simple drawing. With adding the animation on top really kind of brings it to life. So it was a good way to do that stuff. I'm going to click through till we get up to the furnace. All of this processing is getting the ore ready and dried and ready to inject into the into the furnace. And there are four chromium furnaces that take this ore, and they are let me get down to them. Skip ahead. Oh, this was a good example of the dust that is results from this. It was just a big, huge problem because the ore dried out. It left piles and piles of dust, and you could barely see within the building. I guess it was a design oversight. They weren't prepared for it to be that dusty. Um, the final blended materials then get sent by 4 conveyor belts here up into the furnace building where they are dropped down into the furnace. And each furnace is a very large brick structure that takes the ore through the top and drops down into the molten pit here. The ore is melted with electricity. This is a big electrode that is introduced into the top, and they draw a lot of current through it. It gets super hot, so that melts the ore very quickly, and the brick of the furnace tries to keep the temperature up so that you can maintain a liquid pool of liquid chromium on the top. And then the other unwanted metals, the slag, collects on the bottom. And there's a video of the inside action going on where there's a big electrical arc coming off the electrode and just zapping into the liquid chromium. It's kind of an interesting view. And it takes millions of watts of power to do that. It's just a crazy power-hungry process. Then to remove the chromium, they punch out a plug and let the liquid chromium drain into a collecting vessel. And then to drain out the unwanted metals, the slag, they can tap that out and with punching out the plug and let it drain into sand pits to collect the slag into. So we kind of augmented the live action video with some animation showing in a little easier to view form what's actually going on. So there's the metal pouring out into the sand pits. So quite an interesting set of tutorials, interesting way to use the live action video and the animation on top of it. The one other exhibit that we produced for them was a printed physical model of this furnace. We made a desktop model that could be split open so that they can see the insides of the furnace and see how it sits on its pedestal. It's desktop size model. We had a model of the electrode that gets dropped down in here. This is all held together by magnets, actually, that let you take it apart, see the insides, and the presenter could move the electrode up and down to demonstrate how this thing was operated. And it gave them a good testimonial tool to point out the parts of the furnace, how it really works, and where the problems were, the size being too big to maintain the temperature, and the bricks in the roof being not secured where they would occasionally fall out, and the dust from the other manufacturing process. So that was kind of the tools that we gave our client. They were extremely happy with this. Michael Mason did the bulk of this production, and I think Ben Q did the animations of the furnace. I'm sure that Ben and Ocean helped in there too. Then I worked with Michael to make the 3D model and the printed model of the furnace, and Jim Jones worked on the Moto model of that for us. So it was a good project, came out very, very well. The client was happy, and I think it gave them a very good demonstratives to tell their story, and we're just currently now waiting on the ruling.